Well, Ezekiel and Joe, thank you for joining me and taking time out of your schedule to talk about your new film that you have. I first got a whisper of happy birthday from Ezekiel when I met him a while ago at the festival, I believe it was at Oshkosh
That's
at the
Ed Gein.
Oh, Ed Gein the
Ed
musical.
Gein.
That's what it was. Yep, Ed Gein the
Right.
musical. So I heard about Happy Birthday, and he managed to slide a copy to me when it was ready, and I
Very nice.
reviewed it, and I wanted to talk to you because I thought I was very interested in just the whole thing of where the idea came from. Well, I could kind of idea where I get where the idea came from, but how it all came in together in that. So, Ezekiel, if you wouldn't mind giving my listeners, those who may not know what Happy Birthday is about, shame on you. But please give a little brief synopsis of what it is about.
Sure. So Happy Birthday is a film that takes place in a post-apocalyptic, post-pandemic world where, similar to what happened in real life where, a lot of shutdowns and, viruses just running crazy and stuff, where there's one guy that, as far as he knows, he's the last survivor of a global pandemic. And a stranger that Joe plays comes in and kind of just rocks his world. And then there's a little bit of like here we are in the present, which is where post-apocalypse happens, and then we get flashbacks into the past about what happened, how did we get to this place, and why it just kind of became important to the overall story.
Cool. Yes, and yeah, it's a little bit of a different post-apocalyptic film, but I like the more subtle ones because where you shot it and everything remotely and that whole location. So Sam I call you Samuel Samuel.
That's fine.
I got your name. Sorry. Well, I find it funny that he's Ezekiel and you're Joe in real life, but in return, you're Samael and he's John in real. It's
Yeah,
like a switch of the biblical type name.
that is true. Yeah, that's
So,
funny.
how'd you get involved in this, Joe?
Well, basically, Ezekiel and I worked on a project maybe 3 months before Happy Birthday was ever even a thought, and we connected on that set. We basically were like, hey, I think we could do this better than these people are, and then we met up one night, had some whiskey together, and it all just is history from there. Ezekiel started writing it, and I just let him run with it. He's like, "Hey, you want to check this out?" And it was, I think, 2 days later, and he was done with the script.
Two days of full a script for a feature, Ezekiel. How much Red Bull or Mountain Dew
No,
did you down?
no, he exaggerates. I actually stayed up late one night and I couldn't sleep, so I actually turned on Netflix's Resident Evil series, which is
Oh,
terrible,
sure,
by the way.
it is.
I only
It's
got 5 minutes.
it's
I only got 5 minutes into it, but within that 5 minutes, I actually got the inspiration from Happy Birthday, and I just paused the Resident Evil, and I decided I was like, "Oh, you write this synopsis," and I sent it to Joe, and I was like, "All right, go to sleep because I'm done with Resident Evil." And Joe wrote me back the next morning. He's like, "Yeah, this is good. Let's do this." So I turned around and I actually wrote it first as a short film,
mm,
which didn't involve many of the other like flashbacks and everything. It actually was much more condensed. It was probably around 27 to 30 pages originally. And then I was like, okay, well, here we go. Like, all we have to do now is figure out how we're going to do this. Well, then, I had some job issues and stuff. So I was like, well, maybe we need to wait on actually filming it till I get a little bit more rock solid on that. So while we were waiting, that was November of 2022, I want to say.
mhm.
Then January 2023 came, and I was like, you know what? If we're gonna do this, Joe, we need to like go big or go home. And Joe's like, I mean, do you think you can? Like, can you write? Like, I think this is pretty complete. And I was like, I will figure it out. And so the short film script actually took probably roughly maybe about 5 days. And then the revised version went back and fixed some of the old stuff, and then added in a much more depth to the script and flushed it out. That took another probably like 7 to 8 days. So overall, probably let's say like around 12 to 13 days really to pump out the script and revise things. So not 2 days.
So it wasn't a Stephen King writing binge like you did. Lock yourself in a room.
No.
Oh wait, I'm writing, and just.
No, nothing like that. No, that would have been much more like something else. That I was...
Hey, I will stand on a hill and defend Maximum Overdrive till I pass away. Okay, I love Maximum Overdrive, even if he doesn't. A film brought to you by cocaine.
No kidding.
A substance that deserved, as a good friend of mine who's a filmmaker as well, Andrew Shearer, he always said, yeah, the 80s cocaine needed its own Academy Award. So
oh my God,
he's not wrong, but luckily there's no cocaine, at least on camera, for this film. So when you did the short, was that all just the stuff contained in the cabin then initially? When you wrote it as a short?
Originally it was the cabin scenes, and then the newscaster was actually different. We changed the newscaster up, and then there was the flashback recording for Karen and Lexi.
Okay.
So that was it was. So originally it was like a 5-person story.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and so you expanded it. So then how did you go about doing the cast? I mean, you guys figured, okay, true indie film, like, well, we got our 2 leads, but what else are we going to do for a cast? How'd you go about getting them?
Yeah, so casting. So that was interesting because I'd never casted a film before. So we got so Joe is like really creative. I got to tell you, like, so he puts together some of these things. I'm like, hey Joe, can you make like a poster that does this? And he's like, yep, got it. And like 10 minutes later, right there. I'm like, perfect. That's great, Joe. How did you do that? And he said, don't ask Sotella. I said, this isn't the Army. Don't worry about it. But then, so we put out casting notices on a lot of Facebook groups, actors in Wisconsin, some other ones that are out there. And we also put a listing out on, it was Backstage. So, and then we had between all of the notices that came into the email, as well as Backstage, there was roughly around 300 to 400 people that had submitted to us. Wow. So yes, that was very interesting. So, and we had just put out there like, hey, we just want, headshots and, if you've got like a reel or something like that, just so that way we can see what we'd like to have you. These are the parts that are, that we're looking to film. Sure. And we got a ton of interest on there. And it was pretty crazy because I went back and I sent back an email and sent out sides and stuff asking people for self-tapes. Of the people that submitted, I probably requested 200 self-tapes, and I got roughly about 130. So it's kind of interesting. People like didn't want to record anything. Like it was just kind of weird. Like, hey, you want to be in this film, but like you don't want to do any work to get to it. So it's like, okay. It's very, very weird to have just the ratio declining. I expected to have people be like, can I actually submit? Anyways, so it took probably, I'm going to say it was probably like around 25 hours of going through and watching videos and all that stuff. And then I also had, on Zoom, I set up a bunch of Zoom interviews with a lot of people with a second side for a lot of the characters, just to kind of go through. And I wanted to just get a cold reading from people just to see like what their initial thoughts were and how they kind of reacted. And from there, that a week later, I had casted the film.
Except for Dan Davies, who just came up and said, I'm playing the president, right?
Man.
And he just was like,
no,
I'm playing the president. That's me. No, I just kidding. I love Dan's awesome. No, I just
Actually, it's really funny you say that because Dan actually sent over his IMDb and like his Wikipedia page, and I was like, "Who is this guy? Like, I don't know this guy," because I'd only just come back to acting after about 12 years hiatus,
Sure.
and so I was like, "Well, we're just going to do this." So what was really funny, Dan told me later, is that he had not submitted or done any kind of audition for like 5 years, and so here we are, me and Joe, just like, yeah, like we're just gonna do auditions for everything. Yeah. Then later on, I'm like, oh, Dan's kind of been around. Dan knows everybody. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. But he still auditioned. He still auditioned, and
That's Dan.
worth
That's Dan. Yeah.
worth every penny.
Yeah, no kidding.
Dan is, yeah. I keep running into him, so he's definitely fun, and he's fun as the president, which, you get a little political in here, let's just say. But I think that runs the course for indie films. I always say indie films are a great place for people to take risks and such. And you do take some risks in here because I imagine the portrayal of certain characters, namely Dan's character, the president, may ruffle some feathers. Do you think about that a little bit? Do you think about that when you're writing, or do you just write it to tell the story you want to tell, and you're like, however people take this, that's how they're going to take it?
Boy, that's a great question. I will tell you that I took inspiration from two different former presidents in order to create Dan's character, because I wanted to have, a reflection on the economy, and I also wanted it to be just kind of like, there's a certain president that was from the 1940s that had a very authoritarian and like, let's just say, let's give the people money kind of deal as well. And there's a lot of, we try to make it a happy medium, because originally when I was writing it, I was like, this is going to come across as really heavy handed. And the goal wasn't to turn people off. I wanted people to kind of bridge the gap and be like, I can see what he's talking about. And for a lot of people nowadays, if they don't like the person that is talking about something, even if they're making a point that's relevant and it actually makes a good point, they'll just tune it out. And so I thought, let's just kind of put this message in here where both sides can see everything. So really tried not to take sides. And my wife is completely apolitical, so I ran it by her several times, and I was like, let me give me your feedback on, like, how does this come across? And she's like, oh, that sounds good.
It's good that you ran it across with someone's desk, because some of the things that I've seen in some indie films is you're watching it, you're going, man, they should have had someone look at this. It's like, this is a good movie and all, but someone really should have been there and said, yeah, you know what, you got to cut that out. But speaking,
I'll kick it over to Joe, because Joe, you were reading a lot of it as we went, right?
Yeah.
And like your voice was really important to make sure that things didn't kind of go off the wall too.
I will say that Ezekiel does like to go to the wall, I think would say. I guess I wanted to keep it, keep him off of that. I don't know. So yeah, it was a little bit of reeling him back in on some of it. I'll say that much. No. More towards the end, I think he was getting really he's getting a little loony up at that cabin.
just a little bit. But
well,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, that doesn't surprise me, because I think we were all losing it at the cabin. We filmed for, it was 3 days straight of 15, 16-hour days in a cabin in the middle of July that did not have any air conditioning. It was a good time. The solitude that you see in the film is for real. Like, we were in the middle of nowhere.
I feel no CGI.
No CGI. Yeah. No, I feel you there. Working on as an script supervisor for a anthology film for a good friend of mine. We were shooting the wraparound story in a barn in the middle of July in or August, I think it was, in Wisconsin, and the barn was a barn. I mean,
Mhm.
it didn't have animals in it anymore, but you wouldn't have thought it when you went upstairs. That's the thing is we shot it in the upper level of the barn. So we're Wisconsinites here. You know where the heat is in, and then you've got the lights. And yeah, it was 12, 13-hour days. So I could relate. I could relate with that. But what you got coming out, I think, I think that effort and work comes across on screen and actually makes the product better because you guys really put in a lot of work. And especially you, Joe. I'm gonna say right now, I like the way you play Samael, because I thought you were gonna be a bad guy.
Thank you very much.
Was that kind of the angle at first? Because I'm like sitting here going, okay, we're talking post-apocalyptic. We're talking a guy on his own. All of a sudden, this guy is in his leather jacket and he's got kind of the horror Norman Reedus, Walking Dead type of look to him, and he's creeping up in the. I'm like, oh, are they gonna just like fight? Is this gonna be like a home invasion thing?
Yeah, so that was actually the plan. But I think we actually wanted to lean a little bit more into it than we ended up
Mhm.
like then it ended up even showing on camera. Uh, we really wanted the audience to think that Sam was a bad character,
Yeah.
and kind of have that revealed that he wasn't. Um, if I could do it again, I would definitely try to play the character even a little bit more sinister. But I don't know, for some reason I seem to struggle, even just like when I scowl, I look at myself on camera and I'm like, I do not look like I'm angry. But I don't know.
Play with your face a little bit, like, "Rrr,
Yeah,
put your
I got,
war face on."
got some things to work on for sure.
Ezekiel, you both, I mean, you're pulling, well, both of you are pulling like multiple hats in this, but for you, sir, like being with the directing on this, both of you were directing, but I'll ask you first, Ezekiel, how challenging was it, or did it help with Joseph co-directing that you didn't have as much of the weight on you because you're
So
acting and you're behind camera?
yeah, I'm actually gonna give more credit to Joe. I'm gonna say that Joe was probably the lead director and I co-directed, mainly just because I spent a lot more time with writing and producing, location hunting, props. Joe also was. We ended up putting him as the cinematographer just because there was a in terms of the most amount of time that he spent with the camera, he was
Sure.
there for every shoot. And it was, honestly, without Joe and helping to give direction, because our first day that we shot, I would tell you, there was a blizzard. March 25th of 2023, there was a blizzard the day before the first shoot.
Welcome to
And
Wisconsin.
yeah, it's totally crazy. And I was so busy running around trying to make sure that all the actors and everybody was checked in, getting props, distributing stuff. Joe was out and making sure that people were doing what they were supposed to, getting the people, in place on time in a very organized way. Because we also had people that they couldn't stay the whole day when they came for the next day. Some people had to leave, and we just had to kind of like go, 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 go. And honestly, if Joe had not been so on it, it probably would have been, we would have had to do at least another day or two of trying to get people organized. And with the time that we had, it was very important to just go, go, go. So without Joe, I'd be nobody.
Aw.
I appreciate it.
What do you say, Joe, about being in camera in front of and behind the camera?
I will say it's exhausting. So there's so much prep work that even went into it beforehand, of storyboarding and making sure that each scene kind of is able to flow into the next scene. So you have your shot of scene 23 that we're shooting first,
Right.
and you have to understand, like, okay, when I start scene 23, I need scene 22 and 24 to make sense in the movie. There's a lot of prep work, and then on set on that day, you're like, nothing is how I think it's going to be. And I'm doing lighting and trying to figure out positioning and movement to try to make it interesting. And it's if I could do it again, I probably wouldn't be behind the camera and in front of the camera on the same project.
Mm-hmm.
I think doing one or the other is so much effort in itself. I think it definitely like makes one of them fall a little short. No matter what, it's just too much work for one person.
Well, and I imagine
Yeah.
because you both were the main characters in most of the scenes, that makes it tough. Versus, say, if you were a supporting role, you could probably pull it off a little bit easier because you're like, okay, I only got like these couple scenes I got to worry about being in
Yeah.
front of, and then being behind the camera. So yeah, and what about these locations, Ezekiel? Where'd you find this cabin? Because it is a beautiful cabin. It's a beautiful area. I'm like, that is so Wisconsin. Where'd you find it though?
Yeah, so that was it was up north. I'm trying to remember. It was Neilsville.
Oh,
It was
Neilsville. Yes, I know
like,
Neilsville.
yeah, I was gonna say
Absolutely.
Neilsville. So one of our videographers slash the guy who did our drone shots for the film. So he is from Neilsville, and his grandfather owns a cabin up north. And so we went up there early in February of last year, 2023, to go up and do a teaser trailer. And we weren't sure what we were gonna do. We wrote like a short teaser, and then we were like, let's screw that because that's not gonna work. Let's do it this way. So on the fly. So we got a good lay of the land of what we were looking for with the cabin, which was a beautiful cabin, great, scenery. It echoes exactly what we were looking for with like isolation, loneliness. This is where people escape when they're suffering from PTSD in a post-apocalyptic from a pandemic that kills everybody. So it does everything that we wanted. Many of the other locations were ones that I scouted for specific scenes, like press conference scene, actually 2 press conference scenes, I guess. And then, just reaching out and just finding out, and just, you said before about multiple hats. I got to tell you, contract negotiation, I didn't know what I was doing, but man, I learned so much with learning how to negotiate with like so many people, including for prop wise. If you saw Jiffy Mix in there, so I actually negotiated directly with the CEO of Jiffy Mix. I have his cell phone number. It's great. Don't ask for it because otherwise he'll kill me.
I would do that, but if I do ever need a Jiffy Mix in a video I make, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, I did like the mystery meat cans with no labels. I appreciate. We won't say which ones those were, but you knew what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah. That due to so funny thing is like I reached out to like 20 different canned meat
Brands. Yeah.
canned meat companies, and only one got back to me. And then they were like, yeah, we don't actually do that because we want our product to appear that it's like new and have fresh recipes. I was like, nobody thinks that about your product. I'm sorry.
They said they're in the
No.
middle of a rebrand. They're trying to get away from the post-apocalyptic branding that they've somehow gotten.
It's like I would embrace that if I was canned meat. I'm like, it doesn't really matter which brand you get. It's all very similar. I swear it all comes from the same place, and they just can it
Probably.
and label
Yeah.
it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but is that where a lot of your budget went? Because you got a lot of of cake mix, and you've got a lot of canned meat in those shots.
Actually, so the funny thing is that was probably on the lower side of all that. Probably the biggest part of the budget went to locations, and we made sure to pay all the actors, every single one, even the
Nice.
extras.
Nice. Yeah, you don't always hear that happens. You get, well, you're paying for exposure. I give you pay for that IMDb credit, right? Right, Jill? That motivates you,
Right.
right, as an actor to say,
Uh-huh.
hey, I can't pay you, but you'll get that IMDb credit.
That has been offered a lot. It is. IMDb credit. IMDb credit. It's always thrown out there like it's this carrot.
And and I could see maybe if it was like the IMDb of 10 years ago, but now IMDb is such a dumpster fire in many respects. I mean, cripes,
You said it, not me.
I said it. Well, I
Yeah.
can because I mean I actually have an IMDb credit, so that tells you what kind of place it is. But no, a lot of different people projects. Don't get me wrong, it is a good place to get exposure, but not as a payment.
Yeah.
It is more of what I
Right.
mean is that it's so crowded that it's not one of those, ooh, you could get IMDb. You're like, yeah, if I Google it, I'll still be coming up with 30,000 results.
Yeah.
Whatever. So,
Yeah, it was fairly easy to get a movie onto IMDb.
Hmm.
I don't know what kind of stuff goes on in the background of it, but I'm pretty sure I could have claimed any actor was in our film, and there's no check that they really
Mhm.
do. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think Ezekiel got a notification when I put him into our film as anything in there. We had to
Sure.
tell people,
Yeah.
hey, we put you in our IMDb. Go check it out.
Well, I mean that's cool
Yeah.
that you're able to do that though, because the way the internet is, they brings a little bit more legitimacy to your indie film if you can get if your film's on IMDb, it is findable.
Yeah.
And I do love the poster art for Happy Birthday. It's a shot from the film, a very dramatic shot. Ezekiel, how'd you prepare yourself for those emotional scenes with the family, because those were some heavy scenes. I'm a parent too. I mean, I've got a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old, but those were some heavy scenes.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you that poster, that was all Joe. So thank you, Joe. Awesome job. Um, you have a future as a graphic design artist, just so you
There
know.
you go.
Apparently.
As far as like for trying to get emotionally prepared for something, I'm my bachelor's degree is in acting,
Mhm.
so I learned a lot of different methods. But the thing is that it's really hard because when you're used to theater acting, the problem is that you can get like really like too big for camera. You start going whoa, and it takes a process for a lot of people to just pull back so that way they can act natural on the camera. But if you're too subtle for something like like hey, you're holding a body and you're screaming and stuff, like you don't want it to be where you're like you want to have an emotional connection to it. Now, I will say what also helps for that scene is so Lexi Rutherford is played by my actual daughter.
Oh, okay. Well, that
So
helps a little bit.
helping to connect that.
Sure, help to get that emotional connection. So that does help. Though I imagine, did it take a little bit to get then out of that headspace?
Well, I I remember Adam Driver. He said, like, how do you get into that space? He's like, I just think about taxes and traffic, and I'm there.
I'm always curious, and that's why I like asking actors, how do you get out of those serious headspaces? Because they're pretty emotional scenes, and I'm like, man, is it? You hear stories of people like end scene, and then they're like a week later, they're still like emotional over the scene that they did. So I'm always curious of how you get yourself out of that.
To get out of it, I will tell you is like, some people are like really heavy method actors,
Mhm.
like Dustin Hoffman's a huge method actor. Like if he wanted to be totally exhausted, he'd go run for like 10 miles before showing up on set and then be like totally exhausted and like
Sure.
dripping with sweat or whatever. And I'm just like, that's if I did that, I know for sure that I would overact and I would, not be able to really show what I wanted on the screen. And getting out of those, I've only done method acting maybe a handful of times. And I prefer usually just like to stick with probably a more subtler thing and just revisit emotions to get into it. And then to get out of it, it's a little bit easier rather than completely embracing all the physicality of it. Because especially like, I gotta tell you, like some of the times that we were shooting stuff and we're like, all right, we got this cramped area, we're trying to get the camera in, like, okay, Brett, get down, like, just trying to just get the camera in there, and we're all running around trying to do all the behind the scenes stuff, and then also act in it. And it's like, I think probably it's not as dramatic as trying to get out of it for this film, but I would say, in general, like, take a deep breath and go for a walk, and like, I don't know, I've never been so emotionally overcome.
Sure.
Other than maybe like during like breathing exercises, maybe.
What about you, Joe? You get some kind of intense scenes here with Ezekiel.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it is something that I still need to learn, is really being able to get into the scene in the first place. I definitely struggled with that, of like really just getting out of my own head while I'm saying these lines, and I like trying to become the character rather than just have the words come out of my mouth. So I will say I didn't struggle getting out of the character, because I think I struggled getting into character.
Well, it doesn't show on screen. You two have some great scenes together, especially when it starts to get a little heated, and you start to learn a little bit more about Ezekiel's character, which, I loved the flashback scenes. How did you go about with shooting those? You mentioned you shot at the cabin for 3 days. When did you do those flashback scenes? Were those much later, or?
The last thing that we shot was the cabin.
Really?
So the flashbacks actually all did happen beforehand.
Yeah.
So we shot the, I guess, political scene where the president, the press conference. We shot that the very first scene that we did. We learned a lot from it. That was 2 days at a school, actually, in the auditorium, and it's actually really cool. It worked out really well, but we learned a lot from it. And basically all the rest of them were just like, when do we have time? When do we have time? Yep. And then we kept, and Ezekiel finding locations, and okay, we have this location on this date. How many people can we get? This many people on this date, and it all worked out.
Yeah.
Well, that's
that was a big challenge, was making sure, like, hey, we can get this location, we can get it on any of these dates. Do any of these dates line up for every single person we need for this scene, or do we need to like find a different location? And somehow, some way, like Joe said, it all worked out.
It's the joys of indie scenes, right? You're working with people who have many other things going on versus, say, one actor who goes into contract, and that's what they're dedicated to for whatever month that they're shooting. So that's great that you're able to get them all together like that, because it matches up. I'll say it matches up. You match it up well. You can't quite tell. Did you shoot because I imagine all the interior with the press conference, but then you've got the confrontation with the chief of staff. You've got, Joe's seeds. Were they all in the same location, or did you have to go to a couple? They weren't. Okay.
They were all different locations. There was, actually, I don't remember how many locations there were, but that was, I mean, we even shot like this right here. So this might look familiar to you, because the newscaster was sitting at a table in front of these boards right here. So I mean, and that's, so we shot, two or three scenes in my house, and then we had the high school auditorium. We actually used high school hallways and the outside, and also we used one road for Joe's character. We used a very, very nice looking corporate office building that I negotiated with for them to do it. Had a big political flag out there. It was great.
It was.
So there was a lot of different locations, and like Joe said, it just kind of came down to finding the dates in order to make those locations work. So yeah, a lot of different locations.
And yeah, so I mean, wearing many hats, it still comes across great on screen, and it flows so well. I will say I was very entertained. It wasn't what I expected though. I am impressed in a good way though, that you have more drama in here than, because being post-apocalyptic now, we will get to just a little bit the virus itself, but being post-apocalyptic, you really had that isolation angle. Was it easier or hard when you're writing it, going, oh, this is post-apocalyptic, oh, I got to put in like tanks, and I got to put in like, lots of seeds of death, did you have to restrain yourself, or was it easier to go, no, I'm going to keep it remote and just subtle?
Well, I will tell you that most of my background is like comedy.
Oh,
So
sure.
doing something like this was a huge stretch for me, and I was like, you know what, we got to try to keep this as simplistic, especially with a smaller budget.
Mhm.
Let's just try to put this pen to paper and have this be something where it's not over the top. Like, yes, the world's ended, but you don't have like Mad Max Road of Fury or whatever it's called, where it's like huge dust storms and like overdone, and we couldn't do something like that and do it justice.
I will say that I was definitely emphasizing towards the beginning, and I think we both did, because of
Mhm.
the previous project we worked on. I think was way too ambitious for the budget that it had, and it
Sure.
really emphasized like, hey, if we're gonna do this, we have to be really realistic about what we have access to, and we don't have a huge CGI budget. We don't have a huge practical effects budget. So we really kind of had to figure out the story that we wanted to tell, knowing what we had.
And speaking of practical effects, first, yay, thank you for practical effects. When you have blood and it's CGI blood, it is tough to stay in that moment with the movie when you get the CGI blood, especially if it gets thrown onto the camera. You're just like, why'd you do that? Why? Even Hollywood films would do that. I'm like, don't put blood on the please. Why are you, So who was in charge of the blood effects? Did one of you mix that up, or did you actually have someone?
That's Ezekiel.
That was me. We actually used a zesty mint flavored blood from Ben Nye, which was perfect because we had been trying to look at a lot of different like practical effects, like how can we make this not look stupid when people are spitting up blood, and looked at there was at least 10 stuff. We even looked at one where I think it was like a mixture of like oatmeal, and I was like, well, I don't want it to be vomit. Like,
Yeah, right.
like that's gross. We don't want that. So we wanted blood, and then when I got that, and I remember practicing, I was like, let me do a spit take and just record it, and I recorded myself spitting the blood into my sink. And I remember we were using Slack to communicate with our cast and crew, and which is a great tool, by the way. It's free, and you don't have to worry about any of the stuff. But I posted that video in there, and there was like so many reactions, like, "Oh my god!" Like, "Oh, the blood!"
So you're like, "Hey, we got a winner here."
Yeah. So it worked really well. It's easy to clean up too, which was the other thing. He be able to clean up after yourself,
especially when you've got a location that's not your own home. I've heard
actually with my wife, she was like, it needs to be able to be wiped up. If it's not, I don't want it here.
I've heard a number of stories of indie film directors scrubbing till the wee hours of the morning these the blood off the wall.
Yeah,
especially if
this one was easy to wipe.
Well, that
luckily,
works. and you had minty fresh breath afterwards, right?
Minty fresh blood, all for them.
Don't you love those conversations though? You're like, if someone wasn't aware that you're indie filmmaker, someone, and you're having a conversation, just like, man, what do we got to do to spit up blood properly? Oh, I don't know.
Getting the blood to water ratio for some people was definitely a struggle.
Oh, was
Oh,
it?
yeah, because it was almost like if you had it straight up, it was almost like syrup. And so,
Oh,
because during the press conference scene when we were first doing some of those, it was when it was first coming out, it was like just kind of dripping down their face a little bit when they tried to spit it out. And we're like, okay, what can we do? And we got water. What? We got like big red Solo cups. Like, let's put it in here and just mix it up, guys. So, and it worked. So,
Yep.
and then some people are like myself, were like, I'll just and just split out this big, huge, bloody mess. So, fun times.
oh yeah. Well, that's part of the fun of the magic of filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
Had a big tarp down on the stage and stuff. It was, I mean, and that's where we just had like all these bloody clothes.
I was gonna say, because something like that, especially with a couple of the scenes, if you don't get it right on the first take, you gotta change your clothes because you're not gonna get that out of
Yep. Yeah, we had
Yep.
multiple outfits for
every
one of the
yeah.
characters.
Oh, I bet. But it was easy to clean, so that at least it was easy. Did it come out of the clothes at all?
I don't know if
No.
anybody tried.
No.
The few times I tried, I was like, okay, this is not going to come out very easily. So maybe it'll come out in the wash. So I was like, okay, so in order to make sure we have enough time for filming, I'm going to just buy multiple of the same outfits for everybody. So I had to get, actor sizes and everything that were going to be involved with that. And boom, there you go. Enough clothes to last through the apocalypse, I guess.
Well, there you go. Yeah, if there is the apocalypse now, and then they'll be pre-bloodied too. So if someone comes up to you, they might go, "Oh no, I'm okay, I'm good." No, because you'll have pre-stained clothes already.
Yeah.
Now, Joe, for the scenes that you had, I mean, because you and Ezekiel seem to have a very good relationship, and there's a part in here where near the end where you guys get a bit heated. It gets a little bit. Was it easy or rough to get into that headspace because you're just like 5 minutes ago we were talking about, man, I'll try to make it to your kid's birthday, and now you're like, you asshole,
I think by that time when we were filming that scene, I was done with Ezekiel. For real. I mean, no, I mean, we were. I don't think any tensions ever got heated that high, but
Sure.
I mean, that scene, I think, just it really lended itself. The dialogue and everything for that scene really helped. So I definitely Ezekiel and I have a great relationship. We had already been working on this project for quite a while at that point, and I mean, just arguing with him, we had argued so many times already, so it definitely worked out.
You had practice, right?
Yeah.
So
I think we had more time arguing about how to make a shot work than anything.
Oh yeah. That's all. That's all it was just like, no, I want it this way. No, I see it this way.
It's not going to work, Ezekiel. Can you just trust me? Do it my way. Okay, fine, Joe.
Just
but if it doesn't look good, we're going to do it my way.
Yep. And we did.
Well, that's what they call collaboration in indie film making. That's
and it worked out perfectly. Having multiple people and having multiple visions for something. If I couldn't see how it was supposed to get done, Ezekiel had it. So,
yeah. Did you have a big back behind the camera crew besides just because it's you two carrying a lot of it? But was there a sound guy at least, or
for some of the scenes? Yes, we had a sound guy. But then when we didn't, we switched to lavs. And so then that was just me making sure that the lav wasn't in shot and everything. And yeah, trying to get the sound quality to be good afterwards while it was, because I edited the entire film as well.
Sure.
And so all the sound design with that and trying to get rid of any of the
the room sound.
Yeah, or just like air or wind rather, or just like any of the clothing rubbing. Yeah, is a
or fan turned on.
Yep.
You left the fan on, did you?
No, just like down in my basement, so like my furnace would kick on like as
Oh,
we're recording for the newscaster, and it's go, and you're like, "Ugh, just stop for like 5 minutes so we can get through this take.
Yep.
well, I imagine that also the challenge. It's even though it's a remote cabin in Wisconsin, you still probably had some noises you probably had to contend with, like say a plane maybe coming by or
Uh, I will say the birds, they were
Birds,
so loud. Like they at one point,
yep.
I think there were so many hummingbirds at this cabin.
Mhm.
Like I had to remove some scenes because there was just hummingbirds noise going over the audio.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was one scene that we ended up removing from the final version, and that one throughout, we're some of the dialogues like you can't be around birds and cows and whatever and stuff. And of course, what is there? Like these bird sounds. You're like, we're all gonna die.
just the hum of hummingbirds as they're all looking at you, going, "Hey, wait!" They're
Yeah.
judging your acting, right? All the birds. They're like,
Yeah, exactly.
and I think some people forget that you got those challenges too. Like, the one shoot where we were shooting in the barn, it was like it's supposed to be a remote farm. So we had to wait for any cars because it was right near a road. So we'd have to wait. The sound guy would be like, "No, wait." And we'd wait for like 2 minutes while the car got completely out because of the audio picking it up. And yeah, I mean, you overcame a lot of challenges to create this feature. And like I said, I think your hard work paid off.
Thank you.
Uh, so I always love asking this question. What's one scene, and you each could answer if it's a different one or whatnot. What's one scene that you were looking at the script and you're like, this is gonna be really hard. This is gonna be a challenge. I have no idea how we're gonna do it. And you ended up pulling it off like it was actually went a lot easier than what you thought it was going to be. Did you have a scene or two like that?
So do you
I
want to
guess
go first or should I?
I'll go first, and it's probably the same
Go ahead.
answer.
Probably.
So we have this scene that one of the characters vomits blood on another character,
Mhm.
and I thought that just with trying to get the camera angles and everything and trying to get this shot correct, like I thought it was going to be an all day thing, and it took 2 takes.
Nice.
Now, it didn't work out very well for other reasons because our camera didn't have internal stabilization and stuff like that, so it ended up being a little too shaky. But ultimately, like if that wasn't the case, that shot worked out perfectly, and it would have been great. So if it was just not a little too shaky.
I think it helps to establish kind of some of the kind of the unease that people are feeling during that. Just kind of it adds to the vibe. So
It did,
that
yeah.
scene too. But on the reverse side, a scene that I thought was going to be easy to film and turned out to be really difficult was in the scene where John and Sam first meet, and oh boy, having to figure out all the different ways to get the camera angle in order to like when there's a little bit of combat in there, and we were supposed to have another person with us, and so when Joe and I are supposed to kind of get into a little combat there, then we're like, how do we do this? We're both supposed to be on camera, like. So it was very interesting and it was difficult, but I will say is that the way that Joe edited to work and stuff, it works out so well that you wouldn't know that it was just me and Joe for like the first whole day of shooting up in the cabin.
And that amazes me because you can't tell. I thought you had at least another camera person in here. The fact you're telling me that you guys were tag teaming on camera work is impressive because it doesn't show on camera while watching it. That's impressive. so so you can't tell. So from a third person completely not involved, yeah, those shots turned out well. And I can understand that. I did a college project where it was one SVHS camera because I'm that old, and we were shooting in a hotel, and I had a scene where the one guy grabs the other guy and pushes him to the wall, but I didn't just want it one scene. I wanted like 3 different angles I had come up with. So God bless them. They ran into the wall 3 times as I shot 3 different angles. So you guys just doing it, trying to be in front of the camera and behind. I could imagine what kind of challenge that came out to be. But what kind of camera that did you use? Was it one that you could have like the viewfinder flipped so you could tell where you were at?
Yeah, luckily. So I mean, for the most part, with that scene, we were able to do it where one of us was on
Sure.
the screen while the other person was holding the camera or anything. So like, just with camera movement of watching Ezekiel hit my character, or just positioning it on a tripod. Yeah, that was when I was on the ground and Ezekiel's like over me about to hit me. Yeah, having the viewfinder to see exactly where we are while I'm laying on the ground, that was a fun time.
Yeah. Well, and the lucky part is that, so for a lot of those where we actually could set up the tripod, so we had 2 different cameras that were recording, so that way we could at least try to get the different angles, so that way it was less separate takes, so that way it was more cohesive at least. But that was, I mean, gosh, I can, if we've been trying to shoot it with a single camera, it would have been, I mean, we would probably still be filming today.
You never have enough coverage, so there you go. Right.
Yeah.
So what's next for Happy Birthday? Is it hitting the festival circuit now, or what's next for it?
Yeah, so far, and I'm going to double check this here, but I believe as of right now, we've been submitting it to a lot of different festivals. I'm going to actually check how many so far. But we just had one festival that we actually already got feedback from, and it was called the Clout Film Festival, and that's out in California. And got notification right away that they were going to premiere it at the film festival, and then like 2 days later, we actually also were notified that it won for best drama feature.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah. So that's
awesome.
that's some great news for us. And then as of right now, there's 13 other festivals that I submitted it to, including the Milwaukee Film Festival. So, there's a lot that we're hoping to kind of get from exposure for this to a lot of the different festivals. Some of them are international ones as well. So that way that we can just kind of get, a bigger following and stuff.
Sure.
Because the way I look at it is that, like, this film for us is like, this is like a use case. Like, so we can do producing, directing, writing, casting, we can do editing, lighting, so many things that just are all tied into, like, because there's like 40 or 60 different hats that you have to wear in order to get through all this. And I said, like, Joe, this is our use case. Like, we can literally go and tell people, like, here's what we can do. This is all in-house. We didn't hire anybody external to, like, do this, other than bringing in just a couple extra hands for sound and videography. But this is our baby. Like, this is, we can do a lot of stuff with this to show, like, people, like, what we can do. So, there's just a lot on the circuit that's out there. So the film festival, and then that one that we won, we're going to double check the terms, but it sounds like we'll be able to get that out on a streaming platform. We just got to go through. There's a couple of things we just want to make sure that we're cleared for having that. But that'll be out on Roku TV and Fire TV, hopefully, depending on what those terms look like. So
nice.
Yeah, a lot to come.
That's exciting. Definitely exciting. And more eyes on it whenever possible, right?
Yep.
So what's next for both of you? Joe, we'll start with you. What do you got coming up next? I mean, you cut your teeth here on a pretty difficult project. So
yeah, so we're trying to figure out exactly what we want to do next. Both of us, we've kind of said we want to start doing a little bit of acting for some other people for a little bit here, because I was burnt out to start. We kind of crammed in at the end of this project a lot of work, and so I needed a little bit of a break from the actual producing side of it.
Sure.
But other than that, yeah, I want to get back into acting, and then it's on to writing the next one, and I think it's my turn this time.
Yeah, either that or the other thing I told Joe is that if he wants to do a little bit more acting and stuff rather than doing some of the behind the stuff, I said that I would, even if we just do some short films and stuff, like you said, we cut our teeth on this project. I think that if we want to just kind of focus on miniature projects, which honestly, Happy Birthday was pretty much every shooting day was kind of like a mini, like a short film that just kind of added to the whole anyways, the way that we did everything. But I'd like to, look at that and be like, okay, I want to do some acting, but I also want to do maybe like some mini projects. So that way we can kind of get more of a repertoire just to show. And that way we can kind of shake things up in terms of what we would like to do and focus on. And, because you don't want to be a one-trick pony when it comes to a type of film, then you get,
Sure.
We won't go there, but there's, where you see the same kind of film
Sure.
from a director over and over again. So we don't want to fall into that trap. We want to make sure that it's kind of fresh, and also so that way, like to Joe's point, you don't want to get burnt out, doing all that stuff. So let's say if Joe wants to write the next one, hey, I'm going to work on learning editing, so that way he doesn't have to work on that, so he doesn't get burnt out. Tag teaming, so that way it's kind of, you want to be a team. This is, I'm glad to have Joe with me, because Joe is a very technical guy. I'm learning all that because I'm much more of a creative kind of person when it comes to writing and acting and stuff. But I also value Joe's partnership so much that I would not want to put him in a position where he's like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not fun anymore. And that's the goal for acting has always been, number one, have fun. And number two, if you can make money from it, let's do it.
Sure. That's always a nice thing, is if you could have fun and make money at the same time. Usually the two don't end up going together.
Yeah.
So Ezekiel, who would you say is your biggest influence, and why you wanted to just start this crazy biz?
Oh boy. For me, so the biggest influence was my dad. My dad took me to see Toy Story when I was 9 years old. So he got me into acting and stuff when I was really young. So when uploading and making the final version, I added in just like a final thing at the end after the credits that just says "for my father," because really to me this would not have been something that I would have done if I didn't have his influence.
Nice. What about you, Joe? What influenced you to make you get into the crazy business that is indie film?
Well, so I guess main inspiration would just be, so I really enjoyed like drama class back in high school, and
Sure.
I really never allowed myself to do that kind of like creative side of things. I was the person like, oh no, I'm going to be an engineer, and I'm going to make money and like do the right stuff. And then now that I am successful in that, I have let myself go back to the creative stuff. And so it was always just to have fun with this.
Sure.
And then I've always been a huge fan of movies. And then like, I would say John Krasinski and then Robert Downey Jr. are really like two actors that I really have enjoyed watching them act, and like seeing different characters that they've played. And like, I could get there one day. I could do that, right? I could play Iron Man. Let's do it.
Sure. Why not?
No, I'm already an engineer. Let's do it from that side too.
Well, there you go.
He's got that Marvel look, right?
He does have that. He does have that Marvel look.
Yeah,
there we go.
Kind of got that Kerensky, Mr. Fantastic look going on from the, Multiverse of Madness.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can be your friend that dies. So
you always need one of those, because how's he going to get motivated to become a superhero if he doesn't have
exactly?
There you go.
10%.
Yes.
That's right.
I find that hilarious. Like people, I don't think people realize just how similar superhero origins are until they started doing superhero movies, and then they start doing
Yeah.
origins, and it's like,
Yep.
so okay, so this guy, his uncle died, his parents died, his girlfriend died,
It's always
his
death.
yeah, it's always some kind of death. Well, Pixar the same way. Pixar hates parents because how
Yep.
many parents
Oh god.
and things die in Pixar movies and Disney? They
Yes,
love
Yeah.
superheroes
Tragedy.
and Disney princesses. That's what you
there.
need.
There you go. Don't get it. Don't become a parent of either one of those. Otherwise,
Yep.
your lifespan may be short. Well, hopefully, Happy Birthday has a long lifespan in streaming and such. So this has been a pleasure, gentlemen, and always love talking to Wisconsin filmmakers as well. Wisconsin represent. So it's always because I don't think people realize the indie scene in Wisconsin. I know I didn't until I started covering it 12 years ago. There is a rather flourishing indie film scene in Wisconsin, isn't there?
There is a scene for sure. I would say so. Again, if you look at some of the Facebook groups and stuff, it seems like that there is quite a lot of low budget filmmaking that's
Sure,
out there. The what I will tell you is just also from what I've seen, the thing that probably irks me more than anything about the indie film scene is that people want quality for nothing. So
Yeah.
people aren't willing. Well, people aren't willing to invest either in themselves. People aren't willing to invest in their equipment if they want to make a film. Those are things that Joe and I have both done. We wanted to make sure that we're doing quality. It's an investment into you breaking into the industry. Like if you want to shoot a film on an iPhone 7, like, hey, go ahead. But that's the kind of quality that you're gonna get. And if you are like, hey, I don't want to pay anybody anything. I don't want to pay my crew. I don't want to pay my cast. Like you're gonna get people who are newer, who are trying to get experience, and that will be a good experience. And you'll probably find people that don't have experience that have a good eye for things. But a lot of times those people aren't trained. They don't know how to do certain things. And so you're just going to be kind of like, it's the Wild West of like what you're going to find out there. And I think that what Joe and I, when we started this, what we wanted to do was make sure that Wisconsin and the Midwest was going to be, tied to good indie filmmaking.
Sure.
We want it to be quality, and we want people to be like, you know what? Instead of filming this film out in California, let's film it in Wisconsin. Let's hit up Lucid Films and see what they're up to right now. So that's, to me, it's you get out of it what you pay into it, whether it's time, experience, or money. So.
I love it. I love it. And where could people follow you at? You got socials people could follow you at, or a link? Whoever wants to go first. What socials you got to follow?
Go ahead, Ezekiel.
So we have a Facebook page, but the Facebook page isn't really updated too often. Really, the biggest place that you can find us is going to be on Instagram. Okay. And our Instagram, I'm just going to pull that up really quick here. The username for that is Lucid Films Ltd.
Okay.
And then me personally, mine is Keep Things Easy.
That works. That works. That works. I like it. Joe, what about you? You got any socials people can keep up with you on?
Yeah, let me actually look up what my Instagram tag is. I think it's /Joe A Mauro, but I'll double check that. Yes, it is. So Instagram.com/Joe A Mauro.
Fantastic. Well, this has been a pleasure, folks. Check out keep an eye out for Happy Birthday near you. If it's at a festival, see some great Wisconsin filmmaking. And yeah, come to our great state of Wisconsin for the beer and cheese. Stay for the brats and the movies. So here you go. Thank you, Ezekiel. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you so much.